Well, here we are today in a non-natural setting, actually in Texas, as you can see by the license plate. And I thought I'd do a video on this Buick Envista, this 2025 Envista that's my rental car. Because I have to say, in general, it's a pretty impressive little vehicle. Now, the Envista is at the low end of the pricing spectrum in terms of the General Motors lineup, along with the Chevrolet Trax. It's a platform mate of the Chevrolet Trax, engineered in South Korea, and the Trax and the Envista kind of go on sale at about the mid-20s to the low 30s. So they're, at least for today, in terms of pricing that new vehicles cost today, they're relatively cheap. And this is a rental spec vehicle, so it's not a high-end Avenir or anything like that. But I thought I would do a review because, like I said, it's a pretty impressive little car. First of all of the fit and finish on this car is quite good. Unfortunately, this is finished in rental fleet white. But all the gaps are very consistent all the way through. The door gaps are in really nice shape, uniform. There's a couple things on the interior that I'll talk about that maybe could use a little bit of improvement. But the Envista is a true hatchback as opposed to the Trax. And this entire rear area opens, so you can see the cut line here. And that impinges upon the interior cubic feet and roominess, but there's still plenty of room in the trunk here. And beneath the floor you have the spare tire cover. You actually get a real spare tire cover. No sound deadening on the underside of this, but these cars are actually quite quiet. The Trax is not a full hatchback like this, and I think one of the flaws of the Envista is that it doesn't have a rear wiper. You have a pretty big glass area here, but there's no rear wiper, and there's also not a great let's say not a lot of airflow over the center portion of this rear glass when you're driving. So if it's raining, you kind of have the back window that's filled with rain and it doesn't get cleared. Interestingly, the lower end Trax does have a rear wiper. But otherwise, this car is pretty impressive, including on the inside here where you do get a little bit of a soft touch door panel. This is hard material here, hard material, the rest of it's hard, but you do have a somewhat soft place to rest your elbow here and on the center console. Nice cloth seats as well with vinyl trim and a vinyl headrest. I would say they're not the most comfortable, but they're not uncomfortable. I drove this car for about 4 hours yesterday and I thought it was just fine. On the inside, in terms of the display, the Buick, you get one continuous display. The Trax is actually two separate ones. They look the same. And I have mixed feelings about this display. Some things I like about it. The graphics quality is great, but that speedometer that you can see there is pretty worthless. You're forced to use the digital gauge. And then you can see the compass in the upper left, but if you're actually looking at this from my vantage point, the compass disappears with where I have the steering wheel. And there's no gauge on here to see what the tachometer is reading. The Trax actually has a different visual setup. At least I can't figure out how to get a gauge setup that has a tachometer, which I would prefer. But the rest of the ergonomics, aside from this display, are quite good. This one doesn't have the dual zone climate control, but you could get dual zone climate control. Again, this is a base rental fleet model. And I think an attractive dash overall. The air conditioning and the HVAC in this car is great. The air conditioning is very cold. It's not lukewarm at all. Now, here you also see one of the flaws, I think. This is on both sides. This headliner is a nice headliner. It's not a total mouse fur headliner. But where it mates up to this hard plastic A-pillar, you can see it's kind of puckering the seal here. It really needs to be secured such that it's not sitting proud of the A-pillar trim, and that occurs on both sides, which is unfortunate. But again, this car, like I said, is a bargain basement car, relatively speaking, today, and it even has nice features like automatic headlamp dimming. But the real question that probably a lot of you are wondering is, what about what's under hood? This is a 1.2 liter 3-cylinder under hood here. And there you go, it's running. You can see it's got a little bit of a shake at idle, but you don't feel anything in the passenger compartment. This does have a balance shaft in it. Looks like they've got the engine computer here so that it's in line with the engine fan blowing cool air across it, or at least air across it to cool it off. But I gotta tell you, this is an impressive little engine. It makes 137 horsepower, I think 165 pound-feet of torque at just 2,500 RPM. And this car does have active noise cancellation in it. So you really don't hear the engine at all. Even at full throttle, it makes kind of a muted sound, and the noises that it makes are actually really nice. I really enjoy this engine. It's mated to a conventional 6-speed automatic. I'm getting kind of tired, I don't know about the rest of you, of these 8, 9, 10-speed automatics. It seems like they're continuously hunting all the time. Not this one. The 6-speed is great. It's smooth shifting. It doesn't feel like it's in the wrong gear. Maybe it upshifts a little early for fuel economy reasons. And in general, this little 1.2 liter, I would say, is super, super pleasant. It's not a fast car. It's about 0 to 60 in 9 seconds, but it's got plenty of grunt. Yeah, if you're trying to pass somebody at 70 miles an hour, it doesn't have a lot left. But I actually really like this powertrain. It's too early to know how the reliability will hold up, but I hope it's going to be good. But this little 1.2 liter, I have to say, is very, very impressive overall. It's got plenty of low end grunt. It's quiet. This is a wet belt engine. The belt change is, I think, 150,000 mile interval. But, you know, now I think these wet belts are becoming more commonplace and the technology is better. I haven't heard of any failures on these engines. But I have to say, like I was mentioning, this is an impressive little engine that's very, very quiet. You do hear one thing on here. You can kind of hear the compressor cycling on and off. This is a bit of an old school, cheaper compressor for the AC, so it cycles on and off. It's not variable displacement or anything like that, but somehow they've managed it when it cycles. It's not putting a huge load on the engine, so the old compressors, they'd cycle on and off, and you hear the engine die a little bit and then speed up when it turned off. I'm talking really old school now, but not on this car. Interestingly, the VIN is etched into the body here, in addition to being up there on the window. So the powertrain in this thing is actually, like I said, a very pleasant little affair. And if you're going to get either this or the Trax, I would just recommend this. I'll take it for a quick little spin here. I would say that you want to get the car. The Trax is a little bit cheaper, and I actually like the looks of both of these. This one is a little quieter on the inside when you're driving. So if you're driving mostly on asphalt roads that are smooth pavement and you want to drive long distances, the Trax is fine. If you're driving over a lot of broken surfaces or concrete or harsh concrete, loose stone roads, those things, I would get the Envista because it seems like there's a little bit more sound deadening in here. I don't find either to be noisy. I find the Envista to be a bit quieter. Maybe the Trax is a little noisy when you're on that kind of unbroken pavement. And the Envista, I also think, has a bit softer suspension setup, which I prefer. There's a Trax, by the way, right there, driving in front of us. So, but again, this little 3-cylinder, you know, you get used to it. It doesn't have a lot of acceleration when you first step on the accelerator pedal. It takes a little while for it to build steam, maybe like half a second to a second, but once it does, it's off and running. And there's a little bit of turbo lag, I think, coupled with the fact that this is just a small displacement engine, but I mean, you can hear it. It makes great noises. The transmission shifts very smoothly, downshifts very smoothly. It's really a lovely little engine and transmission combination. And like I said, the only thing that I'm faulting, you can get used to that little bit of turbo lag, but if you stomp on it as an example, there I go. So it takes about a second, but now it starts pulling, and it pulls pretty hard at low speeds too. You also see what I mean about that speedometer being worthless. I mean, you have to have the digital gauge here to do anything. So if you're looking for a cheap car, I actually almost bought one of these for myself. So there you go. I mean, you don't hear the engine at all, even at wide open throttle hardly. Done a great job. And this is a rough surface road, so you're getting a little bit of din from the road and the tires, but this Envista is quiet. Again, if you wanted my recommendation just based on driving alone between this and the Trax, I would get this. And I think that this is just a super competitive, not more than competitive car in this price class. It's really an amazing feat of engineering for a cheap vehicle here. And as I mentioned, the HVAC setup in here is really good. The air conditioning is great and cold. So here, I'll show you what I mean on the turbo lag. I'll stomp on it, and you'll see how long it takes for the car to respond. Ready? Go. So it takes about a second, but then once it kicks in, it really moves, at least for a car in this price class. Overall, I found this car, driving it for the last several days, to actually be a joy. There's the upper end Envista Avenir has a Watts linkage rear suspension. This is the standard suspension. I don't know why GM went through the complexity of having two different suspension setups. I don't think it's needed. This car handles really well enough certainly on its own, and rides great too. So if you're looking for a nice little car, again, boy, this is a rough road, and the suspension soaks up the bumps really well. Check out the Buick Envista. Definitely am enjoying this one. Well, look at what I found here, a sister Trax, and I thought it'd be interesting just to do a brief styling comparison of the two of these vehicles. Now notice the Buick has this face of Buick front end with the thin bladed grille up front, kind of the fish face look, a little bit like the Ford Fusion, I want to say. But I think it's an attractive looking vehicle, and I love the rear in particular. And oftentimes rear views on these cars are not as dramatic as the front, but I think this one has a great dramatic flare. I wish that this Envista were a different color than white. It doesn't really show off the lines all that well. But this Trax is also a handsome car. I think this is in Cypress Gray, this Trax, which is like a gray-green color, very attractive color. I think this is a good-looking car overall. The stance on the Trax, it just looks wide, especially as you look at it up front. The designers did a great job making this car look wide. The wheels are set kind of out at the ends of the body. And as I mentioned, the Envista is a true hatch. The Trax has a hatch, but it's not nearly the same size opening. You can see that rear wiper on the Trax that the Envista doesn't have. And I wish the Envista, I think that's one of the major flaws of the car, is that it doesn't have a rear wiper. Because here you get this for clearing ability, and here if it's raining, this is a big piece of glass. There's no way to really clear it, and it would be something if the airflow were going over top of it and cleaning it off naturally, but that doesn't really happen. You get some airflow on either side. You can actually maybe kind of see the rain water where it drains off on either side, but in the middle it just kind of stays static, which is unfortunate. You do get a little bit better tires on the Envista base. This is Continental versus Hankook's on the Trax. These both are the same size wheel, I believe, so not a huge wheel on either of the base vehicles, but you know, good enough. This is a 17-inch wheel on both of these, I want to say. 17 on the Envista, and yes, 17 on the Trax. Four-wheel disc brakes. No drums, although I don't mind drum brakes at all, but you do get four-wheel discs. And even good back seat room in both of these vehicles, despite their relatively diminutive size. So my seat is all the way back pretty much, or close to it in the front. And here you get a lot of rear seat room and comfort. Better headroom in the Trax because it's not this hatchback or kind of extreme hatchback design. But there's plenty of room in the Envista here as well. If I get in, the bottom cushion is a little bit harder, I would say, and firm, but there's plenty of room in the back seat as I sit in here. Although the headroom is a little bit limited, I will say that. You do get the somewhat triple sealed doors. You get the triple seal up here. It doesn't go all the way around. Then you get this door seal that goes all the way around and this door seal that goes all the way around. Both enable low effort door closing. This does not have the acoustic laminated glass in the front like some other more expensive GM vehicles. This is just one piece of glass. It's not laminated on the side glass in the front here. But again, the car is quite quiet. So same is true for the Trax. So what do you think? Would you buy a 3-cylinder car like this? Or this? I think they both look great. I love the taillight design on the Trax. Again, dramatic rear, which is nice. And a great stance again. Very wide looking, which is helpful to make the car look more dramatic. I think the designers did a great job on these. Put a comment in the comment section and let me know. Thanks for watching.